Speaking of which, I actually just put out a post of Priscila Cachoeira. So, Cachoeira, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that, showing you mad love going into this fight. But, Priscilla's a really, really interesting fighter. They call her Zombie Girl for a reason. I have not seen a woman that can go just forward pressure, no matter what kind of damage she takes. I was really impressed with the fight against Luana Carolina. Now, the only thing I would want to kind of go against her was she wasn't able to kind of get in there and land more. I think that she's a bit more of a wild girl. So when it comes to that technical skill, that's maybe that area where she can improve on just a bit, because I felt like with the blows that she's able to take, it just, the timing and things like that against a good kicker like Luana Carolina, it was really tough for her to kind of get in close and do some real damage. But I kind of spoke about it on Instagram, but the 0-3 loss, I mean, those fights were really interesting, I think, because she kicked off her UFC career against a girl like Valentina Shevchenko. Now, again, that's not just any Valentina Shevchenko. She just lost to Amanda Nunes for the second time and moved down to 125. So literally, she was in the fight that created the bullet and probably the greatest 125 fighter you'll ever see. So Cachoeira had perfectly, as an example, one of those fights where a loss is more experience than you'll probably ever get till you meet this woman again for a title in 5 rounds on a pay-per-view main card. So if that opportunity ever does arise, you know what it takes to feel that. And obviously she can get better, but so should you. So what I love about her is just the pure heart, right? In 3 fights, you can really see from a game plan perspective where she should kind of be getting better. But I think that in the Shayna Dobson fight, you finally saw her be able, and that's what I'm talking about, UFC matchmaking. I think that that's a great case where shorter strikes from Shayna Dobson, not throwing many kicks well. Cachoeira, Miss Zombie Girls come in to feast, and man, in 40 seconds, completely laid out Shayna Dobson. It was a clean uppercut. It kind of looked like it was a bit of the forearm, I'm not gonna lie, but kind of came up like that, and it was clean. Shayna Dobson was not allowed to continue to fight, and I kind of made the joke, but like I got up and I was so happy for her, because when you look at the 3 fights that she lost, it was just such grueling battles, and you see her just giving her all no matter what. She's not giving up in any fight. So that's what I'm falling in love with this girl, because from a fight perspective, it's just everything you want to see from someone that's giving their life to this. She just has all heart. She's got the skill. I think she tightened up the technique to just become a complete fighter. And I mean, the takedown defense is actually quite underrated. So I'm enjoying that part of her game. She has 0 takedowns, or 69% takedown defense and 0, takedowns. So this is a stand-up girl. Like, she's going to want to really push the pace and keep the fight standing. And when you talk about a girl like Gina Mazany, I mean, I don't think there's a better game plan to take, because Gina Mazany is going to look to take this fight to the ground 100%. If you look at her previous fights against a girl like Alvia, the strikings, those powerful strikers from Brazil just have their way sometimes. And those knees and the knee to the body and the strikes right after, kudos to Mazany for trying to keep going after that knee, but she was buckling as she kept trying to go forward, and Avila was able to finish on strikes. So I really enjoyed that fight, because it was kind of an Avila coming out party. I really like watching her fight, but Mazany's a great grappler, right? So now you go back into the fights where you can watch her utilize all 3 rounds, be able to get fighters to the ground. That's where her forte is, and I think that it's improving striking that we're seeing from her, but at the same time, when you're taking on some of the best fighters on the planet, it's kind of tough. Lena Landsberg showed better cardio in their fight, and I think she took an L for that one too. So Mazany is like one of those fighters where you kind of expected a lot more to come from, but she's taking on such good competition that you have to give her so much credit, right? Because at the end of the day, Macy Chasen, let's take a look at that fight. People want to say that, maybe against the striker she wasn't doing so well, but I think in Macy Chasen fight, she kept pushing the pace. She was pushing forward, man. She was looking for the right, areas where she can exploit Chasen into her own game plan. But the problem with Chasen is that her striking is pretty good with those hooks coming in. And once she gets those, body locks, she's just really, really dominant. She's long, she's powerful. And I think that Mazany felt that too many times she kind of landed in those positions where Chasen was able to get those body locks. And so when you're playing that much into another fighter's, forte, I think that's where it gets a bit rough. So I like Mazany's record. When you look at some of the losses, coming out of that Pena loss on the tough season, I think that it's really good experience against Sarah McMahon. We talked about the Avila loss, the Chasen and Landsberg. So Ostovich was a huge, improvement for her, right? It was just such a notch on the belt for her to be like, yes, I can do this. And I think that that was a fight where we saw her do what she's really, really good at. Striking's getting better, but Ozovic is a pretty good grappler, right? Like I thought that she really showed off some reversals and good grappling skill, but Mazany took it to her in that fight and was able to finish in that third round. So for me, I think that these are the fights where she kind of needed to get an opponent that was, also in a similar position as her, because when you're starting to take on the best of the best that quickly in your life, it's just like, it's a really tough go, right? And I think that that's at a 7-4 record, she's going to start seeing a bit more of the competition where she can build that UFC career. And I think that in this case, exploiting that grappling, getting Cachoeira to the ground. I mean, do not stand with this girl. From a power perspective, I would be blown away if Mazany could knock out Cachoeira, because that would be a huge notch on her belt, let alone getting this fight to the ground and showcasing her submission and her grappling and dominance from a ground and pound perspective. But to drop Cachoeira, something that, even Valentina Shevchenko made the game plan switch to be like, I don't even care to stand with this girl, because she not only kind of throws crazy, but I'm noticing that she could just take a punch and walk forward, just goes right into her wrestling and just ground and pounds the crap out of her to be able to get that victory. So that's a similar situation I would probably employ for most fighters. Luana Carolina was able to pull off a really surprising fight, but I think the kicks played such a role there to avoid a lot of the damage that Cachoeira can do. And I mean, I don't know if I'm going to say that Carolina and Mazany's kicks are on the same level. Now, if she can get through some of the Cachoeira strikes and get this fight to the ground, she should have a pretty good advantage there. So unless there's massive blows coming in, you have tape like Shayna Dobson to show that Cachoeira, how she's throwing her big power strikes. So I think that there's enough areas for Mazany to kind of pull off a victory if she can avoid some of those blows, because what Cachoeira is bringing. But again, talk about a puncher's chance and taking on some of the best fighters in the world. Obviously I'm going to say that Cachoeira is an underdog, but surprise, surprise, am I a little biased? Maybe, but I think that she has that puncher's chance, and some of that technique goes unnoticed because against a fighter that's really going to look to take it to the ground, maybe she lands a couple blows that can set up something pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, along those lines, I didn't think it would be this bad, but Gina Mazany, man, coming in minus 199, I guess was the opening line, but pretty much a clean minus 120, or sorry, a minus 220, 225 favorite. Priscila came in at plus 171. Now she's about a plus 170, plus 175. I mean, if you're on one of these books, I can get them at a plus 185, plus 190. I mean, I might as well consider laying that just as a sprinkle, because, and that's what I like about Cachoeira. I think that she has that puncher's chance. Mazany, that's the only area where we've seen her kind of struggle, right? Good, powerful strikers that can pick the shots when she gets in close, because she's looking for those takedowns, right? But I think that working with a person like Eric Nixick in Extreme Couture, man, that's one of the madmans that I love. I watch so much of his tape because you can see what he's doing to fighters, right? I think Extreme Couture is on that level now where they're just taking so much of the athletic aspect of the game and just, it's a whole new ball game, right? Like we're seeing it, we've been seeing it in other sports for so long, and it's just why we're seeing on average a card look so good, because the athletes that are being created in these gyms are fundamentally not just martial artists anymore. Like these are martial elites, and I'm really excited to see what Dan Ige does and all the guys coming out of that camp. We saw what Francis Ngannou did as an example. So Mazany has a really good camp to work off of. I think that those are the things that you kind of have to lean on going into this fight. But again, if you're one of those people that are laying a couple bucks here and there on fights, by all means, take a chance at Cachoeira, because she might be able to pull this off. You couldn't have picked a better one. Shout out to the UFC for that again. But